Welcome to Final Thoughts Podcast, brought to you by CrossfaderLA.com, blending culture and creativity. Creativity.
Welcome back to Final Thoughts. I'm your Jeremiah, here with my co-hosts, John, Jonathan, and Mario, aka Father, here to discuss the weekly news, singles, and album of the week. How are you doing, my fellow co-hosts?
We are doing fantastic.
Amazing. Happy 4th of July fireworks week also, so when this is recording this. So hope people all enjoyed the light show this week. And today we'll be kind of jumping into Lupe Fiasco's new album Samurai, which will be very exciting and very, I think, interesting and heated debate, which we'll get into later. But for now, we're just going to jump into the weekly news of the week. John, you want to start us off?
Yeah, of course, I'll start us off. I'm gonna start us off with the easy news headline, the easy news story. On the 4th of July, while we were out celebrating our independence, Kendrick drove home the point that they are not like us over in Canada, and dropped the Not Like Us music video, featuring essentially everybody in LA. If you look closely, I'm in there too. Just really driving home how badly this beef went for Drake. So many, tiny messages, so many things about that video that make it dope. We're not going to sit here and dissect the entire video, but I will at least highlight my favorite part, which is at the end of the video when we have the owl in the cage. I think that was that was amazing. It was such a good shot at Drake. It was such a good point to make that the owls got to be locked up. It was wonderful. I give that a 10 out of 10 moment. I think it's a really solid video. And I think it just goes to really reinforce Drake lost his beef 100%, 100%. Drake's going to do something. If Drake wanted to make some kind of response, the clock has been ticking. I don't think it's going to happen. And yeah, that's kind of the highlight of this week, was watching that video come out. And I think just the video, having the audio of people singing along to the song, they really played it up. So it was overall just a really solid video, and it hit on all the points that he needed to hit on in this video.
What'd you think of the snippet when the song first came on?
Oh man, I was trying to figure out, is that going to be the next album? Is this going to be the next diss track? I first thought was, this is obviously a Drake diss. I don't get it yet, but this is obviously a very layered. That intro's obviously like a Drake diss somewhere in there. I'm excited to see if we get that track fully released.
According to rumors on the internet, I think the release date is 8/8/24. I think it's on his jacket.
Oh,
it has a date on his jacket, and people are speculating that might be the release date for the album. It's actually a Thursday, so it would fall into release date. So there you go. For all you people waiting for Kendrick to drop, set your timers. There's your tentative date.
That's actually especially dope because it's 8/8 being a Thursday would mean that he's specifically referencing that albums come out at 9 o'clock on Pacific time. Because if Eastern time was at midnight, so that's 8/9. So it's specifically Pacific time is 8/8, 9 o'clock p.m. We would get a Kendrick Lamar album or something. So I think that's pretty dope.
And then it's also, how he likes playing with the dates and the times. Kobe 8/24.
Oh, yeah.
So I could see that as well. So I'm like, wow, people have been commenting all along, and I think this video just really ties it all together, how meticulous Kendrick played out this entire battle from beginning to the end. You know what I mean? He was just so meticulous and even diabolical at some points. Like the owl in the cage is menacing. You know what I mean? So hats off to Kendrick for such a well-played chess game in rap warfare. So.
Not to rehash this beef, but I'll leave it on one final thought I think about whenever the beef comes up. How was Drake so underprepared? Like, what did he think was I always come back to this whenever the beef comes up. I wasn't expecting, man. Did he think he was just gonna stroll in, sing some tunes, la-di-da-di-da, Kendrick sucks, and it'd be done? Like, what was he like, needing that? And he planned, there was no like, yo, if he does this, I'm gonna do this. I got this lined up. Like, he was underprepared. Like, he just woke up and was in a beef. Like, he asked for this, but
I was, he really thought Kendrick was not like that, which is hilarious.
I know.
From the outside looking in, I'm just gonna be devil's advocate. I didn't see that coming from Kendrick either, though. I mean, I knew like Kendrick. I felt Kendrick was a better lyricist. I didn't put it like this. I didn't think Kendrick would lose the battle. I just think Kendrick would take it to this level. You know, when he says that line like, "Hey, don't keep our families out of this," and you don't want to take it this far or whatever. And when he actually took it, I'm like, damn, he's a man of his word. He took it
Yeah,
there. You know what I
he
mean?
took it
So
there.
he took it there. He asked for it.
Yeah, he really did. Is there anything feasibly Drake could do to respond in a way where we wouldn't all be like, ah, okay, buddy? Because, like, in my mind, I feel like he's just got done. Like, yeah, what do you think?
I think as much as this beef could be over, there's been longer windows between response times in rap history between a diss track and a response. So
Absolutely.
maybe this is maybe what we're seeing right now is Drake really just taking his time to calculate his next like maybe in Drake's mind he lost the battle, but he's not going to lose the war, that kind of thing. So he's like, all right, let me just fall back. Obviously I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. Let me fall back, get my ducks in a row, and then I'm gonna come back. That could be Drake's mindset, and I wouldn't put it past him because right now he's looking like a big loser. So I mean, I wouldn't put it past him trying to do something real quick.
Get his Duckworth in a row?
Get his what?
Get his Duckworth in a row?
Get his Duckworth in a row. Okay.
Nice word. Nice play on words there, buddy. All right, next. Anyway, moving along. We can talk about Kendrick and Drake for another hour, but
And
there's probably like
we have various points on this show because it's a topic rife with content to talk about. But Father, what is your news of the week?
So, while all of us are out celebrating the 4th of July and spending time with family, it seems that Cardi B was sued on July 3rd, or papers were filed in court on July 3rd. And she's being sued by a gentleman or a group by the name of Stan Jodity. And I guess they sampled a song called Greasy Fry Bread, and it was used in a TV show called Reservation Dogs. It was used in there a couple of times, and so I went back and listened to the track, and there's a very close similarity, but I don't think it's a complete sample of it. I can see why that they filed this, but I think it's still a little bit of ways from being copyright infringement. But that just helped me reminded me of sampling and how it's been such influence in hip hop and music. And so just this year, I was looking back at the Tre Fuego. He was sued by an album, a Japanese album that came out in 1986. It was instrumental, and he was sued by Sony, and he ended up having to pay $800,000. And we're talking about, I don't even know if you've ever heard of Tre Fuego or whatever, so he's not like someone that's on the Hot Singles 100 or on the radio or whatever. He got notoriety, just based off of his talents in the music industry. But to say that he has to pay $800,000 for a sample that he used, a Japanese sample, an abstract sample from an album that was released in 1986, I think is just like you have to be very careful what you're sampling and making sure you follow all the rules and guidelines.
Yeah, I think like all the cultures, especially in Japan, are pretty have much stricter like use guidelines around like sampling and remixing and fan work of like any kind. So that's very especially you have to be careful. I I have not heard this Cardi B song, but I have a lot of friends that really do love the show Reservation Dogs. So I'm just surprised to hear it brought up again in this context.
I'm glad you said that because the Cardi B song was called Enough. It was definitely on the radio. It was her second single this year, so forgot to mention that Cardi B's single was called Enough, and the other song was called Greasy Fry Bread. So I'm sure you can check that out. It'll probably be linked to our Spotify playlist so you can compare the two.
I didn't even realize Cardi B dropped a single this year.
Yeah, enough.
Cardi B's been doing stuff this year. Oh no, I'm thinking of
Don't get them mixed up.
super confusing Cardi B and Doja Cat. I'm realizing.
You're confused. Ice-T and Ice Cube, Cardi B and Doja Cat. We're gonna have to give you like pictures of people so you know.
Yeah, pictures will be very helpful on this podcast. I agree. That's really gonna make a difference. All right,
Well, we have a visual component now on YouTube, right?
where? How can they find it?
Oh, see, all you gotta do is go to the Crosshair LA YouTube page. Look at my hat. And then, well, I guess you can't look at my hat if you're on the podcast version. But if you go to the Crosshair LA YouTube page, you'll be able to look at my hat. You'll see that we have a visual component going along with this now.
Wow, and is that snazzy jingle that's gonna play right here? to direct them the YouTube page? How about
What's
that?
snazzy? Do we have a snazzy jingle? Making?
We'll put it in the edit. But don't worry, let's put it in the edit. And speaking of snazzy jingles and songs, my newest piece of the week is entirely related to the release of a new album that I don't think we're covering on the show. Make it cover in a side B. The most recent chapter in the musical retelling of the Odyssey, released.
Odyssey.
Yeah, so back in 2021, this creator, Jorge, I forgot his last name, but basically he announced that he was going to retell the entirety of the Odyssey through basically musical short albums, and use those albums to tell a story from beginning to end. And the Odyssey, if you don't know, it's an old Greek tale about this guy Odysseus who tries to get home after a war and takes a trip that should have been a week long, tops, takes 13 years long to actually get home. And it's a very tragic and interesting tale. And it's where the word Odyssey comes from, the story of Odysseus. And it's a very well trodden tale at this point. And this weekend, Jorge released the most recent addition to that story with the Thunderbringer saga, which is it's only 5 songs long. All the albums are very, very short. I think the shortest one is 3 songs. But I think the 5 songs in this most recent edition are some of the best musical storytelling I've heard this year, maybe in a long while. Because without spoiling what happens in this most recent chapter, it deals with a lot of the very human and repercussions of mercy versus ruthlessness, looking out for yourself, pushing people down to get your way, and how that can in reality be a boon to you, but also turning away from what's around you, which is all very high noble ideas, but the music makes it feel very visceral and real when the consequences of those actions that come into play. And it just sounds great. All the songs from this saga sound great, but these 5 songs in particular sound particularly great. And yeah, I just recommend anyone who likes musicals or Greek mythology or anything of that nature to go check it out.
How many short albums are we into this?
I believe we are 5 into this. So 5 albums, each about 3 to 5 songs long.
I've always wanted to read the Odyssey. I've always wanted to know the story of the Odyssey. And I'm not a reader, so maybe this is how I get my fix of the Odyssey. And I just figured I'd watch One Piece and figure it out. But that's that could do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good way to experience the Odyssey, because unlike One Piece, Odysseus is a pretty, I don't want to call him incompetent, but he's supremely unlucky. There's a reason his journey takes 13 years to get home. It's really a behold to, in this case, listen to how things keep going worse and worse for him.
Maybe we'll have to take a listen to that on B-sides. I love adventures and stories, just not musicals. Maybe we can reconcile that.
This one might reconcile it, honestly. This one might do this instead of In the Heights, well interest, just it's more recent, right?
Yeah, of course.
As well, it does something I can read that retelling, which is it retells the story, but changes certain small parts of it to fit a certain theme or a modern sensibility, where the original version from 200 BC wouldn't have thought to do. So, just overall, a really solid listen all the way through.
200 BC, is that accurate? Sorry.
I just
made that up.
No, it's
okay. No, okay. I just want to make it. I was it's old, but I don't know if it's that old.
Ancient Greece is pretty old, so it might actually be that old. Here, let me see.
I'm gonna fact check this. I'm so curious.
You fact check it.
I'm so curious. Let's see. 125 to 675 BCE.
Okay.
So older, or more recent. I don't know how BC works, but older, I think, than what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, ancient Greece. Yeah, this is one of the oldest stories to exist. So
crazy.
It's yeah. I think
every time the story is 600 BCE.
They're telling stories since like
They
500
really
million
work?
BCE. What do you mean?
I need a history class. You guys, I have to get a history class. Like, when did we start writing? When did we start telling stories and writing them down? Because that doesn't add up to me.
Okay, those are actually two different answers. Because even this story wasn't written down; it was all just like, you know. Well, actually, sorry, it was written down later, but for a long time it was just told through oral tradition, right? It was through like them doing like the amphitheater.
People told a story, a 13-year-long story over the amphitheater. I mean, obviously it doesn't take 13 years to tell a story, but like, if it spans over 13 years, we got a lot of. So year one, he went from here to here to here. Then year two, it must have been like a 3-nighter event, Come back all 3 nights, full show.
I think I could imagine a situation where if you're telling the story, you're like, all right, we gotta keep him hooked. The story would end here, but like I gotta keep him going. So you know what? They don't get home actually. A storm
I can
goes
see it being a
away.
multi-night thing.
That was YouTube back in the BC. That's what it was. Like, ring the bell, click and subscribe or something.
It kind of was. I mean, yeah.
It probably was, yeah. It was probably, honestly, going to see that written story in the auditorium or whatever was probably super fun too. They probably have food and drinks and fires going. Like, it was probably crazy.
Yeah. Not only was it super fun, I imagine there weren't many other fun things to do. Besides
that weren't violent and dangerous.
Yeah. But yeah, you know some of the myths of the Trojan horse, right? Of like,
yes,
Odysseus is the person who came up with the idea of the Trojan horse, and then did it. And this takes place.
So that's just from that story's from Odysseus or the Odyssey.
I think it takes place right before, but like, yeah, it's the same character, it's the same guy, and it's him trying to get home from that war, and like he won with the Trojan horse, and it's fair, more or less.
That's a crazy story. Yeah, I'm gonna go read the Odyssey.
I'll send you the album later. And speaking of albums, we have single stuff about now, actually.
I know, so close.
Speaking of singles, let's move on now to our next portion, single seconds. Right?
Single seconds. You just name it?
You just like on the fly making stuff up? Wow.
Yeah. Y'all gotta keep up. Single seconds here. We each string up a single of ours, and this time I'll go first since John went first last time. The single I brought today is a fairly popular one from this past couple weeks. It's "Birds of a Feather" by Billie Eilish. That is currently topping the charts. It's a more melodic song from Billie Eilish. It's not as like dark and broody as some of the songs that Billie Eilish is more famous for, but it's a really interesting, just like small, like not small, but like really interesting, like melodic single about, well, how I interpreted it as like being about like womanhood and camaraderie in a really interesting way. And it's honestly, it's just good music. I think the way that the instrumentation is used in this song is very unique, and it feels very, I don't know, it's like it's both hollow, but it's also like pleasing to the ear in a very like strange way. And it just really goes really well with like the chorus with Billie Eilish singing about like birds of feather flocking together, and it's just overall a really good lesson.
Very cool.
Thank you for sharing. My single for this week is, let me make sure I say this right, because I almost came on here and said it completely wrong. I almost came in here and talked about the song Lithuania, but the song is actually called Lithonia by Childish Gambino. It's a single from his upcoming album. Is it Bando? Let me just confirm the album name. I have an idea what the album name is, but I don't want to get it wrong. Bando Stone in the New World. It's an album that he's creating, which my understanding of the album is both a visual and obviously a musical story. So we're getting an actual album. I saw the trailer the other day. We're getting an actual album I think it's called Bando in the Stone World, and this album is going to go along with it. The movie from the trailer I saw is about Bando. I believe Bando's the artist. Bando's this hot artist, and I think the world collapses. So him being an artist isn't worth anything anymore, because what are you going to do when the society collapses? You go sing some songs? Like, I mean, I guess. So that's what I understand. Yes, but the trailer hones in on them being like, we need to survive. I'm gonna go hunt. She's gonna go do this. Bando, what are you gonna do? And Bando's like, I can sing. So that's kind of the impression I got from the trailer. The song's super dope. I think it's definitely a good piece of work from Childish. I like the way it sounds. I like the chorus. It's very melodic. It's nothing crazy. There's no, Childish isn't getting back to rapping on this one at all. But this is just a single, and I think this single definitely meant to set up a story rather than it is to be like the hot song everyone is listening to. I think this is definitely to set us up for this upcoming album slash. Sorry, I had a computer issue. That's supposed to set us up for this upcoming album slash movie that's coming out. Album is set to come out on July 19th, which I'm super excited for. Not sure if the movie is supposed to come out at that same time. I kind of want to check that, but yeah, super excited. I'm gonna be seeing Childish in concert, so I'm probably gonna be seeing this album that he's putting out live. So I'll get back to you guys once I see that live album. But that's my single for the week.
Gotcha. I really want this is a little bit disrespectful to anything I say. I really want Charles to go back to rapping one day.
I don't know if he will.
Yeah, I really enjoyed his rap career, and I didn't really enjoy the Redbone album that much personally, so that's kind of where my interest in his work is. But I'm happy for his success and like what it's been fun with passions, obviously. But
alrighty then. All right. Well, mine is going to be short and simple. It's kind of weather related. I mean, I think we can all agree that it's freaking hot outside, right? And the single of the week that I have is called "Hot Outside," and it's by a group called the Emotional Oranges. They've been around. They've been growing buzz. It's kind of still underground a little bit, but there are R&B duo. The one person used to be an engineer for Drake, and the other person used to be a vocal coach for Adele. And they met at a bar mitzvah and hit it off and formed this group called Emotional Oranges. And they've been around since about 2019. The song is a banger. I think it's going to be a hit, especially with it being as hot as it is outside and how hard the beat hits. They have a very good synergy between the both of them, and so it just plays well with the vocals and the beat and the melody. So I look forward to it. I hope this single takes off. They've been putting a lot of work in. I've been following them for quite some time. Sometimes they'll have a really good song, and then the rest of it kind of fizzles out. But this single right here should really put them on the map. So keep an eye out for them. Their group is called Emotional Oranges, and the single is called Hot Outside.
Emotional Oranges, Hot Outside. I'm definitely going to give that a listen once we hop off here.
It is, in fact, hot outside. I appreciate the topicality. Album of the week. Wow. As I mentioned earlier, the album of the week for this week is none other than the GOAT, Lupe Fiasco's Samurai.
Goat. Stop there. Foul. Goat.
Yeah, greatest of all time. That's what it means, father. I don't know if you knew that. It's like, but like as new, young, hip people, GOAT means greatest of all time. And so I'm referring.
It's crazy that you say that, like Lupe's young or hip or cool.
Listen. I'm not talking about. I'm just explaining to father the slang that we young kids use, right? Lupe.
Young kids use.
Yes, exactly. I'm a young, spry 27. I'm full of life and energy.
I don't think I've ever heard a 27-year-old call Lupe the GOAT till today.
Check your ears. Listen more. Listen more to people around you, man. I don't tell you.
They don't be talking about Lupe. They don't be talking about Lupe. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, every 27-year-old that I know loves Lupe. Greatest of all time.
When a new album drops, no one's checking for a hot Lupe feature. So.
Because he can do features. He can do some good features. He is beyond.
No one's checking for. No one's checking for Lupe, man. No one's checking for Lupe.
Hey, check it out. I'm 52, and I don't listen to smooth jazz, but I feel like this album right here is on that smooth jazz kick. So I wouldn't be calling it a GOAT album at all.
Why? Wait, what does it being smooth jazz have to do with it not being a good album?
I was just saying, like, you talk about spry. I mean, I don't think anyone that's spry and young and relentless is listening to smooth jazz. That's all.
I don't think smooth jazz is inherently. Okay, well, we're breaking into the debate if smooth jazz is young or not. The album itself, Samurai, Lupe Fiasco, is, let me double check with Jeremiah about this, 8 songs long. And it is, Lupe has gone on record to talk about how this album started as a portrait of sorts of one of the people he looks up to, Amy Winehouse, and how that like one portrait, quote unquote, evolved, took shape as this album. And the album itself is really interesting, as a lot of the songs take the perspective of a almost fictionalized Amy Winehouse as she becomes a battle rapper of sorts and kind of goes through that journey. Apparently didn't know out to the album, but apparently at one point Amy Winehouse has a quote where she talks about how like she is interested in doing rap and doing battle rap, and I feel like some of the songs are based off of that. In fact, at one point she calls her to refer to herself as a samurai. I think the single of this album, Samurai, is a reference to all of that, and is what starts like Amy Winehouse's journey in this album of being a battle rapper, right? And so, like in tune with that, the album, as you mentioned, Father, it does have a lot of jazz influences. It feels a lot like a very like different sound from Lupe to credit to Lupe's past, where it's. But yeah, I found it very interesting, and I know that you both have thoughts on again the Goats album here, so I'm gonna let you all get some thoughts in before I go any farther.
It's an album, all right. Yeah, it's an album. It's an album that I listen to. I can start there. I listened to this album. It's called Samurai. I played it from track A to track E.
That's actually great. Yeah.
I mean, it's a piece of work. I enjoy the overall sounds. If I was at a coffee shop drinking coffee and reading a book, yeah, throw on Samurai. Put it on, put the speakers to like 5. Put it on like half volume so I can still focus on my book. But it's some good background music from while I'm reading and drinking coffee. Yeah, it's perfect. But when I get in my car, keep that off. No, we're not putting that on. We're not riding down the coast and the Samurai. We're not. I don't want to hear Big Boy on Power 106 get on the intro to Samurai. Like, no, it's good.
Why is the best, most extensive metaphor you've used on this show to diss this to diss this album specifically? Like, what's up with that, man? Like,
Well, what about that?
personification, metaphor, like stepping into putting a scene for us? Like,
Because you want to know why? I just was listening to Samurai.
Yeah.
I was listening to the personification and the metaphors, and I was sitting there thinking, I need to go to a coffee shop. I gotta go read a book. Like what am I doing? Getting lit at a party? I gotta go read a book right now, and that's how I felt. And I appreciate it for that. I appreciate Lupe for what he does, but he's not gonna be on top 100. He ain't gonna be on Billboard Hot 100 with this one. But his college students, they gonna love it. They gonna love this. And I'll give him that. It's not a bad album. Hit your audience, do what you gotta do. But don't play it in the club. That's all I'm saying.
Who goes to clubs anymore in the anyway, Father, we say.
Spry 27-year-old talking about who goes to clubs.
For someone that grew up on Tribe Called Quest and loving how much they influenced, how much it was influenced by jazz and dope jazz samples, this doesn't hit the mark for me. I appreciate it, but I really feel like, I think John said it best. It sounds like a college professor trying to put out a rap album. Because, as talented as Lupe is, the album just kind of is mediocre to me. It just feels like contemporary boom bap is kind of what I labeled it. And it's just, a whimsical portrait of his journey, crafted with some elite lyricism, which is, his lane. He's a dope lyricist, but it's almost, for me, it's too smart for me. It gets really intricate, really. There's a lot of Easter eggs in the album, as he references trying to portray Amy Winehouse becoming a battle rapper. I mean, just the thought of the album sounds like the movie Inception, where it's like you got to go into a dream to get into another dream to get into another dream. And so as he's talking about trying to become Amy Winehouse, to become a battle rapper, and while dealing with personal struggles in this album, it's like, dude, how much deeper can you get? So we're gonna find the Titanic on the way down in this album, because it's just so much in depth. So, but there are some songs that stand out. You know, I'm not gonna say the album is garbage,
I
because
agree.
I did like Cake. I think Cake was probably one of the better songs on the album. Um, Palaces sound like it should be played in the background in a castle. It just gave me that like John said, library music. I'm
You
thinking
like
like
that music?
the library in the castle or something like that. You know, coffee shop in the castle. There you go. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Once again, I don't think it's a bad album, but it sounds like a professor that made a rap album versus Lupe Fiasco just coming and relinquishing or releasing just dope lyrics across hard hitting beats. And plus, he used the same producer for the entire album. He used Soundtrack, which he's been with forever in his career, which is good. But it could be a gift and a curse. And I feel on here that like even though some of the songs are dope, you get kind of the same monotonous production work throughout the album. It's 30 minutes long, but it's 30 minutes of kind of the same feel.
Jamal, I don't know if you have something you want to add here before I jump back in.
You go. Well, I'll wait till y'all finish blasting
I
me
feel
here.
like I feel like right now you're actually the one setting up Lupe for failure. Because you came in here and you're like, oh, this is the Go album and all that. And it's like, it's not a bad album. But when you say like, oh, this is a Go album, this is a Go artist, he's not even pushing the envelope. Like this album could have came out 5 years ago and it still would have sounded old. So like it's not a bad album, but there's nothing new. There's no new sounds. He's using the same producer. He's been using it for the last 10 years. He's probably rapped over this beat. Probably had these beats in the storage unit for like a couple of years already, and he was just waiting for the right time to use them. Like there's,
Correct.
like I want to hear
Yeah.
something innovative. If you want to call
Uh-oh.
it the Go album, if you want to call him, this a great artist. I need to hear something new. I need to hear something innovative, and that's my biggest problem with rap right now is that I don't think it's innovative enough. That's the problem with rap. Rap is not innovative enough, and for as smart and as talented as Lupe is, I don't know why he's falling into that same hole.
This might be this is his best work since his first album. What was the first album? What was the first with Kick and Push?
First album is the Cool, or no, second one, Cool.
No,
Oh,
it was a Liquor.
Let me see. I'll click check.
But I'm just saying, to me, this is probably his best album, or maybe it's up there. Let's just out of all the albums he had, this is one of his better albums. Is what I'm saying.
His first album was Foot Liquor.
Lupe's had better albums between then and now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, Lasers was what was that? Well, Lasers was an amazing. I mean, whether he enjoyed making Lasers or not, it was a critically acclaimed album.
It was Paper King, right? That's true.
There was I forget what this is. Jamal, I know you know what it's called.
I do know what it's called. You're right.
Starts with a T.
The album?
It starts with T. Tetsuo and Youth. What is it called?
Yes, Tetsuo and Youth.
Tetsuo and Youth. That's a good album. Then there's no hot singles from there, but that's why what Father said the best album since the first. Like Tetsuo and Youth is a really good album.
I love this album, but I do think Lupe has better works than it did on actually as a whole. Anyway, you got it both wrong, by the way. About this album as a whole, and okay, but like, here's the thing. I don't even know where to begin with everything that was just said here.
Well, we'll just end it.
The first time I heard this album, right? Truthfully, I was in the library doing my job, right? But let me fix it up, right? Because that sounds like it's proving y'all's point, right? I didn't hear. I was listening to his words, couldn't understand a word of what he meant at first. It's like, okay, a lot of metaphors, all the words going around. I don't know what the fuck any of it means. But I love the way that it's sonically. I think this is some of my favorite, like, just songs from Lupe in a while. Like, I think, regardless of like meaning, I think just the way he uses his voice and the beats and lyrics, I think combined to make stuff that's just really easy and fun to listen to without necessarily like getting into like the meaning of each song. I actually think the meaning of some of these songs compared to with other stuff is like kind of shallow once you know the conceit of the album. Like once you know that it's a like it's taking the perspective of Amy Winehouse's journey and how that moves to his own journey. The songs themselves, and for me, don't really get like much deeper than that. Like for instance, The second song on the album is what's it called? It's not Cake, is it?
No, the second song on the album is not Cake.
It's mumble rap, right? Mumble rap, I think, is a pretty fun song. It takes this kind of like dreamlike quality of like what if Amy Winehouse was like gifted with the power of rap in this song, right? Like once you know that like that's what the album is about, the actual like context and like deep meaning, this like, for me doesn't really go like that deep. Like it's about like it's about like the perils of fame, right? It's about like he has a song talking about like his house of cards of fame or like the house of bones of fame and how like they've gained all this fame but it's fleeting, uh and like the songs for me are very like fun to listen to in a way that like I don't think you need to get that deep into to enjoy them. But I would honestly argue that like for me like the structuring of this album is not so much that it lacks that it's too deep, that like a lot of his like word choice and very flashy like diction and all of that I think is hiding almost a lack of depth in some ways. But I think I didn't expect to come out of your feeling. But like after like going through looking back the lyrics and everything, I kind of left feeling like, oh, that was the deepest we got with this. I kind of thought we wanted to get a little bit deeper here. Like I don't even really feel like I know that he still the portrait of Amy Winehouse, right? But besides for like the musical inspiration of like jazz and the first two songs referencing like her words directly, I feel like from song three onwards, it could have been about any like up and coming artist, and it wasn't really it didn't really feel to me that it was a really good like portrait of like qualities that are particular to Amy Winehouse, and it felt more like he was leaning too much into the parts of his own story that he was paralleling to than anything else. There's a line I hear about as rare as finding a land in the Atlantic, which is clearly a reference to his deal with the Nine Records, which would only apply to him and not Amy Winehouse, right? Which I think it's like fine to have that in there in this album when it's about really both of them. But I just think it doesn't. It's a little bit too much. I think that for this album's conception, he could have gone a little bit more into the Amy Winehouse side of things. So I think like for me, like I think that's the album falls short. I think some of that meaning is a little bit like lost and muddled. But I do just think the way it sounds is some of like the like his better like sounding work in general. Like I think compared to his last album, which is Drill Music and Zion, right? I think like that album, comparatively, was a lot weaker because on top of having his lyrics that are like generally speaking kind of hard to get, the music itself just didn't sound very pleasing to listen to. On top of that, like you need to either it needs to be one, it needs to either be easy to understand or it needs to be fun to listen to. And I think Music and Zion didn't really deliver on either of those things. Whereas I think this album, I think at different points is doing like it's doing both of those things, right? Where it's both being having like pretty interesting lyrics and pretty like layered lyrics, and sometimes the lyrics I don't really care about, but they're fun to listen to him speak about. If that makes sense. This this is a lot of words that y'all. But like I think like in general, in general, I think he really stood out to try to tell this like fictionalized story about Amy Winehouse becoming a battle rapper. Like that's really like the album, and it sometimes he'll just interject his own life experience into that story. Like that's really what it's trying to do. It just feels like it's more because he really dialed in on the lyrics and the complexity for this one.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, like I said, you can't take that away from Lupe. He is a very solid lyricist, and that's why he's where he's at. And you know, people do put him in a category of uh top rappers, top MCs, or whatever. I
Yeah,
don't put him
I
at.
just did it.
I don't put him in my goat. I don't put him in my goat list, but I understand why certain people do. That's all I was saying.
Yeah.
As a lyricist, I mean, as a lyricist, I could give him that, you know, I can give him the dope a dope lyricist title, and I think that's where it stops for me.
That's where it stops for you, interesting.
Yeah, stop it to dope lyricist. Done. You know, he's not making it on my top 5, top 10, top 20.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I have a lot of artists that I think make like music that is like everything about them is like pretty alright, but like if the lyrics are like a monotonous or boring, then like it's gonna be a pass for me, right?
Like this one.
That's no. Why? Like of all the things that these lyrics all are, you can't call them monotonous about all things. Like they're like I would call them too dense for I call them monotonous.
Jeremiah, if Lupe is the professor taking us on this journey of rap and talking about Amy Winehouse and getting into all these things, if he's the professor, you're the TA. So you just give me the notes and I'll write them down because that's all I got.
Yeah, give us the cliff notes because that's way too deep. Now, okay, you talk about lyricists and how good he is. Um, what would you say if you put him against Kendrick?
Oh,
Kendrick, you Lupe hate Kendrick?
Lupe, I think
Well,
Lupe hates Kendrick.
hold on. That's a strong word that we can't confirm or deny.
Yes, that's true.
Can't confirm or deny that Lupe hates
Lupe
Kendrick.
has gone on record talking about Kendrick for sure, but I don't remember if he like he was talking about him disliking Kendrick or like the label or something. Because it's been a while. Here's the thing: I think we can agree that Lupe is perfectly capable of making like very popular, like catchy singles if he really needs to. He's done it before in the past. He did it with Lasers, which he did it with Superstar famously, right? But he's also gone record saying he does not like doing that. It's not what caused him to the art of like making music, right? So I don't, and I feel like that's what he would have to do to get like a meaningful like cultural victory against Kendrick, right? Because like as we've seen in this most recent battle, if you don't have that catchy hook or like the aura of that Meet the Grams did, right? Then it's gonna be hard to really beat someone like Kendrick. And so while I do think he can write really well and like write potentially like can write to Kendrick's level, I think there is a level to be said about the actual like production and like scoring.
If I can chime in, I just read an article kind of going over the tension there, I'll say. And the story, I'll break it down in kind of in three parts, essentially. A, control verse happens. Lupe gives his opinion on the control verse and Kendrick as an artist. And this is a couple years back, obviously. And he says, I'll put it to you like this. K-Dot is not a top tier lyricist to me and my standards. When it comes to punchlines and bars, his overall lyrics are good. His stories are phenomenal, but his punchline and tundra lyrically, I don't see it. And he goes on to call the control verse whack. And, he didn't think it was that good, which is crazy. Then a couple years later, I think it's funny because I guess, I don't want to put it in quotes, but I guess it is in quotes. He apologizes for engaging in the conversation and talking about it. And I think it was more of a way of kind of just being like, I'm not really that invested in all this. Like I said some things, but I didn't really think it. He probably didn't take it that seriously. He just said what he was feeling, and didn't think it become this thing where people think that he hates Kendrick. I think he was just kind of like, that was just my opinion on his lyricism and the verse, whatever. But he goes further to be, because people said that he apologized, and the quote says he apologizes, which is why I thought this was funny. The quote is, I apologize for even engaging and talking about it. Then later, he has another quote where he says, relax, I wasn't apologizing to him. He goes on to add, I fear no rapper or any on of any kind or any time. K-Dot saw him, you need to chill. So he said, I'm not scared of him. He said, let's make it clear, I'm not apologizing and I'm not scared of him. So I feel like he's going back and forth between this guy sucks and I mean he's like I think he's trying to avoid the beef. He's trying to avoid the smoke while not looking like a punk. I'm gonna just put it like that.
I mean, honestly, yeah. I think he was just like, this. I think at this point it's like, it's like, yeah, I don't want to get caught up in that whole thing, but also,
yes.
I know I'm not gonna like be cowed into fear, right? I have a reputation to uphold to a certain extent.
First quote that I read sounded really aggressive, like, I don't think he's that good. I don't think his punchlines are good. The control verse is whack. I was like, dang, you really feel some kind of way about this.
Yeah, that was some years ago though. That was
a long time ago. Exactly, that was a long time ago. So I don't think he really is, thinking about the control verse, at this point in his career.
Also, you know what? I remember the point I want to make about this album actually, because I remember I had this thought when I heard the song "Cake," and I read what it was about. Because I was like, oh, this sounds like pretty unoffensive, right? It's about just like I have a lot of victory, but this one's really great. X, Y, and Z, right? That stuff was like nothing particularly special, right? But then I watched
Yeah.
Lupe talk about it, right? And he was talking about how Cake in the story of the album is Amy Winehouse after she's won her first rap battle, and how that has accelerated her and like pushed her into this new passion of hers, and like that's the perspective that song is mainly occupying. And I was thinking about how, wow, that's really interesting, and how most people aren't going to get that from a first or even second listen through, right? And I think in that way, this album really reminds me of like a painting where, in the sense of like, where at least for like my experience, right? I can have all these grand ideas about like the thing I am painting in my head, right? But once I paint the thing, all that's there is what's on the canvas. All that's really there is acrylic and paper. And so whatever else I wanted to like intend for it to be on there, what's on there is on there. And that doesn't make it bad. It just means that like I can't control how people are going to receive that story or are able to interpret that information. And for Cake, I think the reason why Cake is a pretty good song is because Cake is ostensibly Lupe wanting to continue this narrative of My House in the album, but at the same time, it's also just a really good, just a pretty good song that does not rely on that narrative to make it an interesting song. Whereas I think the other songs on this album, I think for me, only work once I knew that narrative and I had the whole picture. That makes sense.
Can I can I say something that might be controversial, and I hope it's not too controversial. I'm not trying to start any beef or start any issues.
What's up? What we doing?
Does Lupe know Amy Winehouse? Did they ever meet?
Oh.
Were they ever like? I'm sure Lupe looked up to Amy Winehouse or whatever, but like when Jason Tatum tweets out that he texted Kobe Bryant before a game, people clown him for that. And it's like, yo, Kobe wasn't cool with you like that. Like, why are you talking about him like you guys were homies? That's kind of how I feel sitting here listening to him be like, so Amy Winehouse wasn't a battle rapper and she did this and that, and I'm like, well, Amy Winehouse probably might not have even really been that invested in rap. I know you mentioned that there was an interview where she said that, where she maybe alluded to being interested in it, but like, I can't help but sit here and be like, did Amy Winehouse want this story to be told about her? Did she want to be, at any point was she ever thinking, I hope someone takes up my mantle to drop, not my mantle, but like my name to drop a battle rapper album? Like, he could have made up a name, he could have made up a story, he could have probably could have told a crazy story without ever using her name and went more into it, of a person who was a jazzy singer who got hooked into rap, and that interview could have just been the inspiration for the story. I don't think he needed to, use her name when specifically representing this album. And that's just like, it's just something that crosses my mind. I'm not, like I said, I don't really care all that much. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think it's a big thing, but I can't help but think that sometimes whenever we go back to that Amy Winehouse point of like, how much did he know her to be using her name in his album promotion, I guess.
So from what I read, he only read that she said that. He didn't hear it from her like verbatim. He read somewhere that she wanted to be a battle rapper, and that influenced him to make a song. And that song went from one song to another song that eventually evolved to an album. So I don't even think he heard it from her specifically. He just read it somewhere, and that just sparked something in him to create this body of work. So, but Amy Winehouse, she did associate herself with many like high caliber rappers. Like, she had many songs with Nas. She had many songs with Ghostface Killer. She had a ton of remixes that were basically hip hop style remixes. She worked with a producer named Salam Remy, who's known for making like a whole bunch of dope hip hop tracks. So she was definitely around that environment, and definitely just gravitated towards dope hip hop. But obviously her talent was her vocal skills and singing and things of that nature.
I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like the narrative when we're talking about this for any media source, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what Lupe's direct opinion on this, but it sounds like the more I hear about it, the more you're talking about it, it sounds like more of like, this isn't supposed to be like a story about Amy Winehouse, but it's supposed to be, he was inspired by this quote And then he came up with, and this is what came from an inspiration. That's not necessarily a story about Amy Winehouse. That's how I'm interpreting it at this moment.
I think it's something that Lupe has done before, where he will take. I think it's interesting. I think like on the album Drogas, which is a very like honestly great album, like Drogas Wave, he has a twist to where he takes people who have passed away, and a song imagines their life like positively as like what would have happened if they would have lived. I believe the songs are it's Alan Forever, which is about a little kid who drowned trying to cross the sea. And imagines him a future where he lived a happy life. And there's a different song I don't remember right now, but like basically this is something he has done before, where he will like use his music to paint a celebratory portrait of someone's life as it could have been. Whether or not that's like a thing that you agree with him, it's a totally valid question. Because like yeah, that person is like not here to speak on them if that is something that they wouldn't like really enjoy or not, right? Or like something that would really like resonate with them. So I think that it is like I think it is something to consider and talk about when you're talking about like doing a whole album based off of that idea, right?
So I mean, so basically, he's just deeper than most of us can fathom. He's just going all off in the deep end, and just goes back to what I was saying earlier, Inception.
That I don't think that's what.
I'm just saying, it's like if you, I don't know if you ever watched the movie Inception. If you watch the movie Inception, you'll kind of, I feel like Lupe Fiasco is just such a deep lyricist that it's kind of like him. His lyrics just remind me of the movie Inception because I first glimpse of Inception, it was just so deep. Like I said, repeating myself, going into a dream to get into somebody else's dream to get into a subconscious person's mind to steal a dream to come back and rob people is just way deep. And it's kind of like when I hear you talk about Lupe, especially about how this Amy Winehouse quote evolved into this album and how you think he's talking about himself, but he's talking about Amy, but then realizing no, he's talking about his perils. It's like, dude, which there's just a lot going on, I can't take anything away from that because it takes a great mind to come up with a concept that deep and then write lyrics about it, and at the same time, those lyrics be dope, and make sense and have intricate wordplay. I mean, that is a talent in itself. It just sucks that the music and the concept is just the music is kind of not mediocre, but it's just kind of blah. I'm just gonna be honest in some certain aspects of it, but his talents I think are overshadowed by the monotony of the album of the beats, and it's just I think in some aspects too deep for the average mind. I mean, we're talking about a college professor here spitting lyrics. So maybe a Stanford graduate like yourself finds it easy, like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys get this.
No,
But for us people,
I just looked up on Rap Genius. That's the thing. I didn't analyze it. I just looked up what it was about. I just did like 5 minutes of like, oh, what's going on here? Oh, you don't say. This is about Amy Winehouse, huh? I didn't need Stanford to do that. Okay,
we're not young Sheldons here, so I bet young Sheldon got this on his playlist though.
Oh my gosh. Oh, there's a young Sheldon fan out there for anyone who's curious.
But I think I've made my points with that. I think my favorite song on the album is probably Mumble Rap, which I think is a really funny commentary on mumble rap, but also like a really interesting story. I miss when Lupe told like more fantastical stories on his albums, like Streets on Fire, like Kick Push. Like those are like kind of storytelling based songs. And I kind of wish he did more of that these days. And this song on the album is like the main one that for me that does that really well. So a big for me it's mumble rap. What about for you guys?
For me, it was Cake. I mean, outside of Samurai, because obviously that was the first single off the album. But after that, I think I kind of I do appreciate mumble rap, but I do think that Cake was probably the one song that I felt was a little bit intricate wordplay, and I think the beat was pretty better than some of the other beats. And so I think that was my choice for the album.
I'm with you, Father. Okay, I think Cake was the best song on the album and the only song that really stood out to me. I think I like Palaces more than most people seem to have liked it. I was a fan of Palaces. I like the quietness almost of it. I enjoyed it. And then to speak on my favorite part of any album, intro tracks. I mean, what was I saying? Outro tracks. The outro track on this album, on my scale for outro tracks, the outro track here is just fine. You know, it's just nothing. It's not moving the needle. It's nothing crazy. I'm not gonna add this to my outro track playlist, but it's cool. It doesn't say. It takes us out of the till eternity. I got you.
To be so real with you, when I first heard this album, I was like in the library. At one point I was like, I was listening to it, I was liking it, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm tired of this. Let me change it. And it was when I got to the song, I got to the outro, so I was like, oh, like, you know what? All right, I get it. I'm good.
So you got tired of the album.
I got tired of the sound. The outro song.
You said album. We got it on video.
We got it on video. We'll run it back because you said album.
All right. So closing notes. What do we give? What do you give? A 1 out of 5 on this album, John? What do you give it?
I don't want to be too harsh, but I feel like
2.5.
That's what I'm feeling. That feels way too harsh.
That feels too low. Come on, like compared to those 2 out of 5 you've given on this show, for instance. Though.
Okay, what I'm gonna say is, with my musical preferences in mind, and this being my personal rating, yeah, it's gonna 2 out of 5, maybe even a 2.
Okay, all right. Father, what about you?
I'll go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go 2.5.
Yeah. I'm giving it a 5. So that's already. Actually, I'm giving
You
it
got a 5.
You can't just give it a 5 because we gave it a bad score.
I'm giving.
What are you talking about?
I'm giving it a 4.5 actually because I didn't really like.
Okay, I'll let you have it. You can have your 4.5. I mean, I guess like it's.
Do you have you turning in a paper? You trying to get a good grade or what?
Because you got a vested interest in this one.
Listen, I just think y'all have missed the point on this one being so real. Like I think it's fine. Y'all are allowed to miss the point, but
like how you missed the point on Chief Keef.
I think we all agree Chief Keef was bad, right?
And I think Pitchfork does it.
Okay, all right. You know, honestly, we should go back and do like Chief Keef versus Lupe episode just because of the BS yelling the whole hour. We would agree on nothing the whole time.
It doesn't even work. You know what's crazy? Aren't they both from the same? Aren't they both from Chicago?
I think so.
Yes,
yeah, they are. They probably have a song together somewhere.
Probably. Do you think they've ever battle rapped before? I mean, we sort of don't know it.
Oh, I get what you're saying. I actually just see what you're saying.
Yeah.
We want to thank you guys for checking us out. Obviously, you can find more content at John, where would they find more content?
Oh, so you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. On Spotify, we're under the Final Thoughts podcast. On YouTube, we're under the Crossfader Los Angeles YouTube page.
Yeah, once again, that jingle will play right here. Take it to the YouTube page.
Jingle? You mean the link? What jingle? What kind of? You're gonna put a jingle over me talking right now?
Yes, exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Word for word, what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'll put a jingle over the Liquid Fiasco album.
Get him out of here! Get him out of here!
Please.